Well, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. And oh my word, do we have a treat? A treat that is of my sensibilities, which is we have got some documents to review today, ladies and gentlemen. Our hard work paid off. And today we are going to be looking at documents that have been newly delivered to me from Cambridge, Massachusetts, the land of Harvard itself. But we're not looking at stuff from Harvard. We are going to be looking at things from the public schools in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, as you know, or as many of you know anyway, I can't account for all of you knowing this. As many of you know, I have recently been doing streams where I have been publicly investigating all of the information available on public websites that are run by these school districts or run by the schools themselves, basically looking into what the schools are putting out there regarding what they are teaching their kids. And we go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes. Sometimes we land on their equity plan, as we did in Chicago the other day. Sometimes we end up watching their YouTube videos. Sometimes you can go down any number of rabbit holes when you're doing a live school investigation. Well, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, we ended up going down the teacher training rabbit hole, where I went onto their Twitter account. And by the way, social media is one of the places that schools really get themselves into trouble, because not only do the schools tweet things, but the school employees tweet things. The equity directors tweet things. The teachers tweet things, not just on Twitter either. They post on Instagram. They post on TikTok. You always got to check their social media, because the social media is where they give away the ball game. And when we started originally investigating the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools, one of the very first things that I found was this post on their Twitter account. We are honored to welcome again the incomparable Dina Simmons, founder of Liberate Ed, SCL, to Cambridge Public Schools. Your work is inspirational. Thank you for a rejuvenating workshop. Well, it turns out that Miss Dina was doing some training at the Cambridge Public Schools. And so I decided to FOIA what she taught. And I'm not entirely sure that all of the files I have come from Miss Dina. I'm not entirely sure yet, because I haven't looked at them. You guys are going to be finding out this information live, but we got all these files. The city of Cambridge. Thank you, Sarah, in the city of Cambridge Public Records Office, for very nicely providing me with a metric boat ton of files. And I gotta be honest, I got them yesterday. Yesterday was a rather full day for me. I started streaming at 10:30 in the morning, and I went to bed and basically didn't even eat lunch, really, or even dinner for that matter, until like 12:30. I was with my locals community. We had another stream. There was stuff going on. I had a meeting. I was flat out all day yesterday. But you know what? Now, yes, exactly. This is basically an unboxing video. I truly have no idea what these files are going to say, but Eleanor has been Eleanor, who actually has kids in the Cambridge schools, has been taking a look at the files, and she assures me that they're crazy. But I appreciate you being here, Eleanor, for the little bit. And of course, the recording will be live when you're ready to come back. This is basically an unboxing video. It's like Christmas morning. I never thought I would get so excited to have access to files in my life, but that is the magic of a FOIA request. It is a magic. Oh, Eleanor is giving us a preview. Fun fact: gender is a social construct and a tool of white supremacy. Oh, great. Oh, great. This is going to be a fun time, guys. Why do I have a feeling that, you know, we might get the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools in a little bit of trouble? Of course, that is not the intention of the stream. The intention of the stream is not to play gotcha games. It is not to elicit fake outrage. We leave that to Twitter. The intention of the stream is that we're going to show people what's really going on based on the school's own files. And so that's what we're going to be doing today on this stream. I'm really excited about it. I hope you're all sitting back. We're going to do a little reminder of who Dina Simmons is before we get started. By the way, we're going to do that. And that's what we're going to talk about for today. But guys, just a quick reminder, this is part of the Schools Exposed project. So I am working right now on creating a training program to help teach 10,000 parents how to do exactly what we did with the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools. Listen, none of what I'm doing right now is rocket science. I will be the very first person to admit that. I am searching on websites. I am looking through troves of information. The reason that I'm able to do this live on the internet is I have done a lot of it not live on the internet. And so I've developed knowledge where like I know where to look for things, generally speaking. And if I don't know exactly where to look for things right off the bat, I know how to figure it out very, very, very quickly. Not everyone is in the same position as me. And what I want to do is instead of putting it on myself or my Unwoke army and community to investigate every single school district in the country, what I would much rather do is do a giant download of all the information that I have in my head. I want to give it to as many parents as I can, but I've set a really, I think it's an audacious goal, but I think it's also an attainable goal of training 10,000 parents how to find this information. I want to teach them how to speak the language. I want to teach them where you look on school websites. I want to teach them how you search out different social media, how you find stuff on YouTube that the schools might be burying. Because here's the thing, this is all publicly available. It's all there. But oftentimes the school's websites are just like this giant cluster of information. And so when you first start looking on these websites, it's like a fire hose that comes at you. It's not that people are dumb. They, of course, know how to search websites. It's that people are very busy and it can be very, very, very easy to get overwhelmed. I want to arm parents with information so that they can go in and search their schools and find out what's going on so that they are armed with information. So when they go to that school board meeting to say what is going on here, they know how to speak the language. They know how to get out of any traps the school's going to set for them. They know how to call the school out when they say, no, 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 this is just about making things fair for everyone. No, no, that's not what equity means. I want to arm parents with all the information I have in my head to create 10,000 little me's out there so that I don't need to do all this stuff. It is really rather a selfish enterprise. I admit that. I acknowledge that because I can't investigate every school. So instead, I want to create an army of parents who are doing exactly what I did with Cambridge, Massachusetts, and that is where we're going to start. That is what the Schools Exposed program is. That is what you can help me fund by heading over to unwokearmy.com/parents. When you do help me fund this, I still have 34 more days left of my official crowdfunding. We are at 112% of goal, which is awesome, which means that this program will be launching in January. What that money is covering is the technology to host the training on a private platform. So no cancellation, nothing like that. And also my time in developing the program, because developing a program like this is actually a really labor intensive process. And so I'm going to need to dedicate basically I'm planning the program now. I've allotted from like the beginning of October through the end of December to basically get this program built. That's reality. I can't take on consulting work when I'm doing it. So you guys are paying for my time in developing the program and in administering it and in investing in the technology. And now I want a marketing budget. I do. I want a marketing budget. I am going to be a good use I'm going to make sure that I'm a good steward of your dollars. That is very important to me. I have people who have donated to this campaign that they really reach deep, and I know that. And I want to make sure I do them proud by making a really good use of their contribution. And the next thing I'm funding for is I want to be able to have a marketing budget to do grassroots marketing and outreach to be able to get in front of as many parents as possible to get them in the program to teach them how to do all of this stuff. So that's what you're going to be funding. And in return, I'm going to provide you with some great perks. Might I suggest at the $50 level, you're going to be one of the very first people to get into the Schools Exposed program, which is going to be pretty great. One of the first group in it. There are only 50 slots available for that, and 24 of them have already been taken. So they're basically half gone. So you got to get one of those spots if you want them now. It goes up to 75 after that. And once the program launches, it's going to be a $99 one-time fee. And that helps, again, cover the technology costs, cover the cost of my time, things like that. If you want to go up to the $90 level, not only are you going to get a spot for you, but you are going to create a scholarship for someone else to be able to join the program. And that was a special request that people asked me to do. And so I'm glad to do it. At $100, you're going to get a signed copy of my book, Actively Unwoke. You'll also get a first slot in the program. At $250, you're going to get a private training with me where I walk you through on a one-on-one basis how to do all of this stuff. At $500, I'm going to look into your school for you. And at $1,000, I will hand knit you a beautiful one-of-a-kind shawl that you are never going to see anywhere else. We will work together to pick out the pattern. We will work together to pick out the yarn. And I will make sure I create you a beautiful creation that you've never seen anywhere else. People know that I don't sell my knitting. This might be the only time I ever sell my knitting in my life because I don't want knitting to be a job, but I'm willing to make it a job for this. There are only 10 slots available for that. You can head over to unwokearmy.com/parents to learn more about the program, to watch the intro video, to read through the outline that I have built. And I hope you'll consider supporting the campaign. And it would really help me out if you do. I greatly appreciate it. A couple more quick plugs before we get started and look at these files. I do want to let everyone know that I will be having another supporter book club about a month from now, October 22nd, in keeping with our dystopian theme at the moment. We're going to be reading the Communist Manifesto. Listen, it's time. It's time we all read it. I read it a long time ago. I don't really remember it, and I suspect I would have a completely different perception of it now than I did then. And so we're going to be reading the Communist Manifesto on October and having a discussion about it on October 22nd. The way you can get invited to that, this is a supporter exclusive. So you either have to donate to that Indiegogo campaign that I just showed you. I will be inviting people who donated to the campaign to join us. Or you can join my locals. You can join my Patreon. Or you can join my Substack as a paid supporter. You can find all of that at activelyunwoke.com/support. And then you can join us for book club next month to talk about the Communist Manifesto. And you get lots of other cool perks too, like 2 Zoom calls with me every single week, like our monthly Bitchcraft, access to the supporter Discord where we're doing movie night. We will be doing a movie night this week. There is a poll currently in my locals. We will either be watching Idiocracy or we will be watching They Live. And it's really neck and neck. It's like almost 50-50 right now. I think Idiocracy is like winning a little bit. I would go for Idiocracy, but if you want to go with They Live, I think we're winning either way. 2 great movies, and we will be watching that in the supporter Discord on Sunday night, and you get access to that when you become a supporter, again, on Locals, on Patreon, on Substack, or by supporting the Indiegogo campaign. Last plug before we get started, of course, it's Tuesday, and so this is not my last stream of the day. It is but my first stream of the day. We will be congregating with Joshua tonight at 9:30 to have Nothing Remotely Controversial, which is a show that we do every single week that's a lighthearted view of the news. It's supposed to be fun. Last week, I dressed up wearing a crown and a robe because it was royal night, and that was pretty great. But we just have a really good time with it. And even if you don't believe in psychics, and yes, Joshua is a psychic in real life, Joshua actually made a correct sports prediction last week. I was really proud of him. He also correctly predicted, by the way, check this out. Joshua told me like weeks ago that I was going to get my Twitter back this past Saturday. And guess when I got it back? Saturday evening. Late Saturday evening. I just didn't know it until the next day. So Joshua, to the day, predicted when my Twitter was going to be restored. I promise you, he had no way of knowing that. In fact, he told me yesterday, he said, he was like, Carlin, thank God they gave you your Twitter back because I was really sweating it. I was like, how am I going to explain this if I'm wrong? But he did predict it to the day. So that's pretty impressive, I think, for someone who, you know, you can believe the psychic stuff or not. And I understand why some people don't. But even if you don't believe it, Joshua's a ton of fun, and we love having him on the channel. So join us at 9:30 tonight if you have not already. All right, guys, please mount that like button for me. Now, before we get into the training, I just want to remind you, who the teacher trainer from Cambridge, Massachusetts is that caused me to FOIA this information in the first place. And I want to be clear, I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't looked at the files yet. I'm not 100% sure that she did the specific training that I FOIA'd, but I am 100% sure that she does do training in the Cambridge public schools. I just don't know if she did the very specific training we're looking at. So we're going to find that out when we open the files. But I just want to watch a couple of videos of our friend Dina here, because this is the type of stuff we do with the Schools Exposed program. So this is, do you guys know how we've been watching a lot of webinars from like Haymarket Books lately? Haymarket Books is like the legitimately socialist book publisher. Well, the reason I got on a Haymarket Books bend is because that's where we found Dina. That's where we found her. Let's listen to what Dina had to say in this webinar that she participated in with Haymarket Books like 2 years ago.
Based on the people that we're citing here, Angela Davis, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, and others, that a lot of their work is inseparable from anti-capitalism. Is abolitionist teaching anti-capitalist by nature?
Abolition is anti-capitalist by nature. You know, we know right now that capitalism is the structure that we are under. And so we're going to use this structure to our best ability. But what we also know is that capitalism will not free us.
And you got to remember that this country was built off of stolen Black labor, and that all of those folks who are positions of power who have that money, you got it because you stole it. You know, and I think, you know, it's always so funny. Can I throw money at that? I'm like, yo, that money is mine. Like, that money is mine, actually. You stole it. You know, and I think, of course, you know, being, you know, an abolitionist is anti-capitalism, right? Because there's a connection between capitalism and slavery in this country. There's a capitalism between, you know, how communities like redlining were built to disenfranchise people, how, you know, the hierarchy of structures in organizations, who gets paid and who has the power to say this, that's all capitalism. And honestly, to me, that's whiteness. And we have to eradicate whiteness. We have to abolish whiteness as well. And
last word, Goldie.
We have to eradicate whiteness and abolish whiteness as well. And she's very anti-capitalist. And as we know, in the land of the woke, whiteness actually means capitalism. I'm not entirely sure that Dina understands that, but the way that the woke use whiteness, what they mean every single time they say it, is capitalism. So that gives you a little preview into what we're going to find. We got a couple more videos to watch from Dina, but I do want to say thank you for Jen for the super chat. Wow. In the mid-90s, when I read that Commie Manny in high school, we learned it was bad and couldn't and shouldn't be duplicated, but now weirdos are like, let's do it. P.S. Congrats on the run for New Hampshire governor. Yes, I am currently running for New Hampshire governor. I will, in fact, fun fact, while I was permanently banned on Twitter, it was officially Secretary of State certified and blessed that my name will be printed on the ballot in November as a libertarian candidate for governor of New Hampshire, the only endorsed candidate from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. So don't worry about that other libertarian who faked her way onto the ballot. We don't worry about her at all. She's not even, no, she's basically a Democrat. She's basically a socialist. It's okay. I'm not bitter or anything. But no, I will be on the ballot for governor of New Hampshire in November. Please vote for me if you're in New Hampshire. That'd be pretty great. Let's watch some other comments that Dina has made. Now this, I don't even know if I told you guys about this on the stream. Dina was featured at a CASEL social emotional learning conference. CASEL is one of the two major providers of social emotional learning to schools. And let's see what Dina had to say at CASEL's conference in 2019.
Can I just add that when we talk about the work of equity, we're talking about redistributing resources so that there's greater fairness. And so I think the reason why we're still talking about equity and not about liberation is because we haven't gotten equity yet, because in order for equity to happen, all of us need to be willing to give something up. We need to be willing to give up our comfort. We need to be willing to give up our seat at that Ivy League school. We need to be willing to get out the way. And too often we're so focused on hoarding and that's mine and I worked for it and therefore I'm not sharing it. Equity is about redistributing resources so that the outcomes are different and seeing the common humanity in each other. So again, I always ask folks, what are you willing to give up?
Equity is about the redistribution of resources so that outcomes are different. Oh, you don't say. What does that sound like to you? From each according to their ability, to each according to their need? Who said that? Can someone in the chat remind me who said that? Dina just said the redistribution of resources, the equity is the redistribution of resources so that the outcomes are different. Who said from each according to their ability, to each according to their need? Whose concept is that? Oh, yes. Oh, that's Marx. Marx. Some bad guy. That definitely sounds like someone you want teaching your kids or teaching your kids' teachers, as the case may be. And by the way, guys, Castle, if you have kids in school, you need to check right now to see who their social emotional learning provider is, because I promise you they have a social emotional learning provider, and it is basically a 50-50 shot of if Castle is that social emotional learning provider, because they are one of the biggest in the game. So this is not a small rinky-dink thing. This is a big thing. Now let's listen to Dina on a podcast that she did, I think, a couple years ago. Not recently, but, does it really change that much in this short period of time? I don't think so. Let's listen.
But for the most part, it is learned. And that's why I do believe that you can learn to be anti-racist. It's just that white folks don't like to be uncomfortable, and how scary it is to think that you might lose this supposed power. Yeah. So our schools have blood on their hands because what the schools taught us was founded and seeped in whiteness. And so what that did for many of us, Black and brown and other like kids who are not like within the majority, it taught us to believe in a not enoughness. It taught us to believe and worship whiteness. That all of us Black folks, even to today, are still unlearning and undoing the harm of whiteness that came at us in our education system.
All Black folks are still undoing the harm of whiteness that came at them in the education system. Remember, whiteness doesn't mean skin color. Whiteness means capitalism. I know it can be tricky sometimes. I understand that. I acknowledge it. But every single time you hear them say whiteness, you have got to think capitalism, because that's what they mean. I wonder if Dina, when she was doing training at the Cambridge Public Schools, talked about how the schools were seeped in whiteness. We're going to find out because we have their training documents. But before we get into that, I just want to point out like one other kind of interesting factor. So Dina's company, Dina's social emotional learning company, is called FOIAed. And as you can see in this screenshot, and this article is available on carlin.substack.com. That's my actively unwoke Substack. That's where I post some of my unwoke stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff I got to post this week. But this picture is available on there. Dina does fundraising through Act Blue. If you go to her fundraiser, she raises money through Act Blue, which is a Democratic Party fundraising tool. That's what that is. And that's who is doing training in the Cambridge schools. And we know because they posted it on their Twitters. And what we're going to be looking at today, hopefully, is, and again, I'm not entirely sure that these courses were taught by Dina, but I know that they were offered in the Cambridge Public Schools. I think I've got their information about becoming an anti-racist and anti-biased educator. I know I've got their one about gender and intersectionality and gender. I've got at least 2 files on that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on this website too, or in this Substack article too, that you can take a gander at if you are so inclined. But I think it's time to open the files. How about you? This is a nice little unboxing ceremony. So the first thing we're going to open is this letter that they sent me. Okay, so this is in response attached hereunto. Okay, what are they providing me with? Please find attached records, responsive items 1 and 2 of your request for workshop materials. Okay, so we do have those workshop materials that I just, hang on. You can't see my screen. Hang on. So it looks like we do actually have the workshop materials for becoming an anti-racist and anti-bias educator. We also have this intersectionality and gender one. I was just looking at this letter here. The city is withholding the records used for sessions held by, isn't this interesting? Isn't this interesting? Dina, who we just saw talking about how we need to abolish capitalism, The city of Cambridge, Massachusetts is refusing to send me some of Dina's training materials because they say they're the intellectual property of the presenter. Golly gee, Dina, if you don't believe in capitalism, why can't I get your files? Maybe I should tweet it, Dina, relentlessly, now that I have my Twitter account back, demanding to know why someone who doesn't believe in capitalism is hanging on to intellectual property laws when it comes to hiding what training she's doing with the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Does anyone else think I should do that? This is a little bit small. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you if I can. The city is withholding the records used for sessions held by Group Dynamics and Strategy Training Associates and by Dina Simmons, as those materials are exempt from production pursuant to the Copyright Act of 1976. Under blah, 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 the materials used in these sessions are intellectual property of the presenters. You have the right to appeal these withholdings to the supervisor of public records and the right to seek a judicial review of an unfavorable decision by commencing a civil action in Superior Court. I think we might just do that. Grim Metal says, keep up the good fight. Thank you for that super chat. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I think we might just do that. But first, I'm going to embarrass Dina by juxtaposing the fact that, you tweeted it, DinaBot? Okay. Can you ask her why she believes in intellectual property if she doesn't believe in capitalism? That'd be pretty great. I'm going to ask Dina every fucking day. Why do you believe in intellectual property if you don't believe in capitalism? I'm just saying. But you know what? I don't actually really care about that because the thing is that I got the materials that I actually wanted. And so that's fine. So let's see. Where do we even start? Oh my goodness. Well, why don't we... These strategic initiatives workshop, becoming a high expectations teacher, becoming street data. That's session 6. That's session 4, 5, 6. I'm just trying to get my lay of the land. I don't know what that is. Strategic initiative, session 1. Intersectionality and gender, 1, 2, 3. Becoming an anti-racist educator. See, I only have session 2 and 3 for becoming an anti-racist educator, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think that's where we should start. Becoming an anti-racist educator, put on by the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging in the Cambridge Public Schools. Essential question: what does equitable teaching and learning look like, sound like, and feel like in a Cambridge Public Schools classroom? Anytime you see the term CPS, that's not like CPS report or anything like that, like in the office. That's Cambridge Public Schools. Okay, so these are not done by Dina. That's all right. These are done by, okay, that's going to be a district employee. That's going to be a school employee and a youth advocacy specialist. She, her, they, good, they, them pronouns. This bodes well. Divine principles of healing-centered engagement, how it responds to persistent traumatic stress environments. Why are the Cambridge Public Schools creating a persistent traumatic stress environment? That would be my first question. Community agreements, stay engaged, don't give up when it gets personal, difficult, or uncomfortable. Speak your truth, even when you may be experiencing your racial ignorance. Why is the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools hiring teachers who experience racial ignorance? What does that even mean? Experience discomfort. Transforming beliefs will not come easily or painlessly. Expect / accept non-closure. Continuous learning requires you to choose imperfection over inaction. Assume positive intent and take responsibility for impact. So what they're saying there is that even though they're saying choose positive intent, your intent doesn't really matter, because it's your impact is all that matters. That's kind of an interesting thing. I've never actually seen them juxtapose it like that. They're literally saying, assume positive intent of other people, but when it comes to you, your intent doesn't matter. Only your impact matters. Confidentiality, what is said here stays here. What is learned here leaves here. Well, not so much anymore, is it? Introduction. And by the way, like, why are we telling public school teachers that what they say in a teacher training paid for by taxpayer dollars is confidential? I don't think that shit should be confidential. Maybe that's just me. Okay, they're doing breakout rooms. Add a sticky for the top 3 challenging behaviors you identified in your Do Now and Jamboard under behaviors in small groups. Okay, blah, blah, blah. COVID chat. Okay, a persistent traumatic stress environment, trauma and crisis that have become commonplace, focuses on root causes of health disparities, food insecurity, lack of housing, and medical care. Again, I have to ask, why are the Cambridge Public Schools creating an environment like that? Collective experience of trauma. More than a few people experiencing trauma at any point in time. Okay. The extent to which social toxicity, the extent to which social environment is poisonous in the sense that it contains serious threat to the development of okay, check this out. The extent to which the social environment is poisonous in the sense that it contains serious threats to the development of identity. What I think that means is that they are telling people that they are specifically creating an affirming environment at Cambridge Public Schools, which means they can't question anything those kids say ever. Andrew, this is a great idea. I think you should FOIA the contract they use for the training, see what it says about intellectual property. Andrew, we're going to do that. Let me just make a note of that real quick. FOIA, I also want to know how much they paid her. FOIA the contract for the training, CPS. Thank you for that, Andrew. Great suggestion. By the way, guys, if you have suggestions or thoughts about any of this, please feel free to chat them in. If I don't see it, chat it in again. I can't be expected to come up with all the good ideas myself. We have to work together here. When it comes to social toxicity, we need to heal from harm caused to our social identities that include race, class, gender, sexuality, etc. Our sense of power. Critical race theory is not about race, it's about power. Our sense of power to change things and act in ways that improve well-being for our communities. The sense of interconnectedness, that means intersectionality, and sense of belonging, our sense of achieving a desired future and sense of aspirations. Social detriments of trauma, racial bias, sexual orientation, immigration status. Poverty colorism, homophobia, patriarchy, racism, individual, interpersonal, institutional. Oh, they have a link to a video for us. Okay, hang on. Oh, wait. Hang on. Let's watch this video. Why not? Why not? It's 10 minutes long. We can get a pretty good sense. Guys, I'm going to start playing this video because they linked me to it. But like, I want to start watching it. If we find out that this is not a useful video, then we'll stop watching it. Apparently this video is about social emotional learning. All right, let's do it.
There are 3 challenges, I think, with current formulations of social emotional learning. The first challenge is a challenge with context. And that is, how might we think about emotional regulation, empathy, social responsible decision-making when kids come to school hungry in the morning, dodge bullets during lunch, and fear the police as they walk home from school in the afternoon? The question is, how much grit and social emotional learning makes a difference when nothing around you changes? The question is how much adversity actually makes a difference? So when we think about adversity and perseverance, how much? What type of adversity? So there's a difference between adversity and suffering. Adversity might be those things that make life a little more difficult. That you can talk to a friend, that you can have a relationship with your teacher, but suffering is a different thing. Suffering is an internal psycho-spiritual condition that young people experience. It's a sense that I am hopeless and there's nothing that I can do that actually makes a difference in the quality of my life. And so when we talk about social emotional learning, we have to put it in that context. How do we think about social emotional learning in the context of suffering? In the context when young people see news reports about Ferguson, in the context of when we think about the issues of Oscar Grant, the context of what we see in Stanton, New York. These are the kind of social and political issues that call to question the kind of social emotional learning that's important. The second challenge of social emotional learning is culture. Janie Ward suggests that the ability for young people to affirmatively talk about their racial and ethnic identity is in fact an important protective factor in a society that views them otherwise. For African-American young people, for my daughter who's 13 years old, to not feel good about being a Black woman, to not feel good about her kinky hair, to not feel good about her thick lips is in fact a damage to her social emotional states. So when we think about social emotional learning, we put it.
Do these people really not realize that teenagers who are going through puberty don't feel good about their bodies? No teenagers, not just Black teenagers, no teenagers. It really boggles my mind. Do they think that all white girls go through puberty and they're like, this is fucking great? No, that doesn't happen, by the way. It doesn't happen at all.
In context. That is, it's one thing to have healthy conversations with young people, but we also have to have healthy conversations about race, about ethnicity, and about the cultural environment in which they live. The third challenge is a challenge of focus. Social emotional learning tends, because it comes out of sort of educational psychology, that the challenge of focus presumes that the change is at the individual level. In the African American and Latino and many indigenous communities, there is a collectivity, right? There's the idea that I am not well until we are well. I am not well until we are well. And so that my son, who is 16 years old, might feel good about himself.
Did you notice he just argued for the collective? It's not enough for me just to feel good about myself. If he doesn't feel good about himself as well, then I can't feel good about myself because it's about the collective. This is how you know you're talking to a socialist, like a real one, because people who are not socialists talk about the individual. People who are, they use the word collective all the time, and they always want people to subjugate their individuality to the will of the group.
But his consciousness is that his friends might be harassed when they come home from school, and that his other, the friends that he hangs around with, that there's a collective consciousness about the conditions of other African-American young people. And so the three challenges with social emotional learning, context, culture, and focus, I think we need to take up and understand how to place it in these contexts. We did a study on social emotional learning. We wanted to understand how we could actually support young men who were struggling both in school, and some of them actually had dropped out of school. We did a one-year study, and we wanted to understand how is it that we could use a social emotional approach to actually support them in their own lives, that they can make better decisions, and that we can have the kind of conversation.
I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way.
Make a difference in terms
I don't
of their
disagree with what he's
navigation
saying
skills.
now.
Some of these young men, when they came to our program, were homeless. For young people, homelessness is not like we think about homelessness with veterans, right? Homelessness for young people is, I stay with my grandmama, right? Or I'm staying with my friend, or this week I'm staying with my auntie, right? Homelessness is—
That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought of that.
Shelter vulnerability, right? So even though they don't consider themselves homeless, they don't have a regular place to go. So some of these young people came to us homeless. Some of them came to us who had been to jail. And we wanted to work with them in what we called a healing circle, a radical healing circle, to use some techniques that I have been using for the past 15 to 20 years with African-American young people. And we met every Wednesday night at a community college. We met at Laney Community College, and we had a healing circle. In the healing circle, basically, we did two things. The first thing we wanted to do was provide a sense of, we know that they came to us stressed, and most of them, when they came to us, self-medicated. They used marijuana. And so we wanted to give them some techniques to actually address their sense of stress. And we wanted to have conversations about the issues that they were dealing with. So the argument generally goes like this, that the context of poverty actually threatens social emotional skills and social emotional awareness, that trauma and violence threaten character development and skills. What we found actually—
I want to say that, like, on this section of the presentation, I don't disagree with anything he's saying yet. And this is something I really want to keep reinforcing to people. Just because there are some really negative elements of social emotional learning that I think should not be taught in schools at all, that doesn't mean that there are not also positive aspects of it that can be picked out and utilized. And so I'm not a channel where I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, if there are good elements, we should say there are good elements. We shouldn't just hate on everything just because they come from our political opponents. He's making some good points, and I hope that people can— what I hope is that people can hear the difference between the good points and the bad points. And Murphy's Pool says, thick lips are awesome. Thank you, Murphy's Pool. Appreciate it.
Actually was the opposite, is that it wasn't that young men were lacking social emotional skills and social emotional awareness and character traits. In fact, it was because of the context of poverty that they had a sense of self-control. It was because of the context of poverty that they had a sense of self-confidence. It was because of the conditions that they faced in their neighborhoods that they had a sense of grit. So it wasn't they were lacking social emotional navigation skills. It's that the context that they had, the context that they had to navigate actually facilitated it. So we concluded in our study a couple of things. We needed to bridge our understanding of building social emotional health and what we call healing. So it's not just about social emotional states, but it's about the capacity to become well again. That we have to understand that the conditions that young people face do harm to their social emotional states. And part of the healing process is getting them to understand the broader social issues, building a sense of collectivity, so that they can actually confront and change some of the conditions in their schools. We call that process radical healing. Radical healing has 5 parts. We call it 5 principles of radical healing. That is, placing culture at the center of discussions and strategies in schools and after-school programs. The simple question about what does it mean to be African American? The question about what does it mean to be Latino, right? That is conversations that make race explicit. Now, what this requires is oftentimes a challenge for teachers of color, because it requires that white teachers have a comfort level about engaging and talking about race. Right? But this process of culture makes a significant difference in being able to connect with young people. The second is agency. That is, how are young people engaged with actually transforming the very conditions of their lives? The third, we're more familiar with, which is relationships, building healthy relationships with young people. The fourth is meaning, having meaning and meaningful engagement. And those are activities like we saw earlier.
He's talking about all individual focused activities. He's not talking about collective activities. He's talking about individual.
Right. So it might mean what kind of project can we instigate, or what kind of project can we talk about that might address police violence in our schools, right? And the third is achievement, or the fifth is achievement, right? And the sense that young people can have the capacity to master a set of skills. Phil came to this group. He was one of the young men that was homeless. And after our 6-month process, Phil decided that he wanted to start his own business while he was in high school. And so when he came to us, he was homeless. But what he did was he started working at a Goodwill. And what he would do was save money and use the money to start his own t-shirt company. This is one of his first t-shirt companies. Now, obviously, it wasn't enough money to actually sustain himself, but what it showed us was that the process that we used allowed him to make better decisions and allowed him to actually use the very little resources he has to actually engage in some kind of economic development. So I want to end here, that when you think about social emotional learning, right, that it is both a function, social emotional learning is both a function of the external opportunities and our internal capacity to hope. And both of these are inextricably tied to one another, creating an inextricable elixir of possibilities. We have to understand that these things make a significant difference when we combine a radical healing approach that allows for young people to hope and see the world differently, but also engage them in connecting and changing the very conditions of their lives.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't mind this guy at all. There were a couple things at the beginning of this clip that that are questionable for me, but most of what he said was pretty good. And I want to point out Andrew's excellent comment, which is that the first part is racial identity. They didn't have to do that. If he had just done like the like gotten rid of like the first 2 minutes of this talk and done like the last 8 minutes, you would have no argument from me on this. We should be teaching young people how to personally empower themselves. We should be teaching young people that they have the ability to pull themselves out of the situation that they find themselves in. We should be teaching young people entrepreneurship. Why the left isn't arguing to here is an equity argument that I would absolutely agree with. Why doesn't the left want to put an entrepreneurship program in every underserved inner city high school in the country? I would be on board with that. Ideally, I'd like an entrepreneurship program in all high schools, but I would absolutely be in favor of putting an entrepreneurship program in every inner city high school in the country to teach these kids how to build and manage wealth. That would be a game-changing part, like a game-changing equity strategy that would be amazing. But they never offer that because the left is pretty racist. I'm not talking about this guy right here. The left in general is pretty racist, so they would never offer that. I didn't mind that guy, though, so I'm not upset about that. Okay, let's go back to our slides. And then they had a conversation about social emotional skills and social emotional health and well-being. Fine. A psychological framework of radical healing. Interlocking systems of oppression and hate, envisioning justice and liberation. What do we think when we hear the word liberation? Emotional support, system of strength, critical consciousness. What does critical consciousness mean? Radical hope. 5 principles of healing-centered engagement: culture, agency, relationship, meaning, aspiration. By the way, the answers to these questions is that critical consciousness always relates to critical race theory, and exactly, liberation, liberate us from capitalism, exactly. Anytime you hear the words liberation or abolition, you need to think communism. And the diagram does look a little bit like a butt. It does. Just slightly. It looks a lot like a butt. Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. We're going to move on. So they're doing some healing-centered whatever. All right, that's the end of that slide deck. There's nothing too terribly offensive in that one. Fine, fine. All right, let's see. What is the second part of becoming an anti-racist educator? I love how they instruct them to change their Zoom names to include pronouns and pronunciation. That's pretty, yep, they did vampire. I'm not displaying that on the screen. All right. All right, this is just a pro tip from, I've facilitated a lot of workshops. Do you know what you never, ever do when you're facilitating a workshop? You never, ever, 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 ever ask people to tell an embarrassing story from when they were a kid. It's a really bad idea. It's just a really bad idea. It's going to go wrong in all sorts of different ways. We got the same narrative 4. What is narrative 4? Hang on. Let me just look that up real quick. Narrative4.com. All right, let me show you what narrative 4 is. Students have stories to tell. We give them the mic. Stories break down barriers and shatter stereotypes. They build curiosity and community starting in the classroom. You can help young people forge deep connections, fight social isolation, and become, and here it is, powerful forces for change. Why are we training young people in schools to become activists again? Now, the loneliness thing, I think it's good that they're tending to loneliness, but all right, so now we know where these people come from. Let's continue. They're talking about building relationships. All right, I don't have any problem with that. What is empathy? Community norms, partner share, story exchange, debrief. What comes to mind when you think of empathy? Does it have a link? It does. All right, hang on. Oh, Brene Brown. Brene Brown. Okay, well, fine. It's 3 minutes long. Let's watch.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage.
No one ever says that. Who says that?
John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student.
No one does that.
We do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
I actually didn't mind that most of that video. I think that Brene Brown did make some good points in that video. I also think she made it really, I don't know. She made some good points. She made some not so good points, but whatever. Okay, so they had to watch a video about empathy. And then they did an exercise about it. The 4 parts of empathy. Okay, fine. Empathy is not pity, liking everyone. Empathy is risky. It requires vulnerability. I don't necessarily think that these are bad. Perspective taking, storytelling. Okay. I will say this. I do think it's a good thing to teach that human beings are not perfect. They're going to fuck up. Now, what you should not teach is that when they fuck up, you engage in a struggle session to hold them accountable to their actions. But I actually do think it's a good thing to teach that human beings are not perfect and that they're going to make mistakes, and that if you want people to forgive you of the mistakes that you make, as you will inevitably make them, then you need to forgive other people as well. So I don't necessarily think that was bad. Oh, a trigger warning. Okay, so they made people offer trigger warnings. They had discussions. Narrative 4 is a global organization driven by artists, shaped by educators, and led by students. Led by students is problematic. Our core methodology, the story exchange, is designed to help students understand their voices, stories, actions, lives. Okay, fine. This is a sales pitch. All right. Now, I will say this. So we just looked at 2 slide decks about becoming an anti-racist, anti-biased educator. And neither of them really had to do with the topic. This is not an anti-racist training. I have watched hundreds of anti-racist trainings. These were not anti-racist trainings. So I'm a little suspicious is what I'm saying. I'm just a little bit suspicious about what I was actually delivered, because this is not what anti-racist trainings look like. But that's a different problem for a different day. I'm not going to do that right now because we got other stuff to get through. And I want to look at intersectionality and gender in the classroom. Mount that like button if you are ready for what I think is probably going to be the highlight of our show today. All right. Intersectionality and gender in the classroom, introduction, name, pronouns, and why we are here. If you feel comfortable sharing your pronouns in the chat, please feel free to do so. Oh, they had to maintain a journal. What is your gender? What is gender? What is your gender, and how do you know? This is a very personal question that requires no judgment for other people or yourself. How has your notion of gender evolved in your life? Reflect on your own gender identity and prepare to think about application to the classroom. Explore the relationship between binary gender system and colonization. I wonder how they're defining colonization. A map of gender diverse cultures? Oh, good. Potential topics. Gender is a social construct. Intersectionality. Adultification. Misogynoir. And the Safe Schools Initiative. Community agreements. Participate, be present, embrace discomfort and confusion. It's a sign of learning and growth. Be curious. Assume best intentions, accept responsibility for impact. So they're doubling down on like assume good intentions for everyone else, but if you fuck up, like you don't get the same benefit of the doubt. Say ouch if someone says something that hurts. Give snaps if someone says something that really resonates. From now on in my community Zoom calls with my locals, I expect you all to give snaps if I say something that really resonates, or just say ouch if I say something that hurts. I'm told I'm an evil manipulator and tyrant on Twitter, and so just say ouch if you feel I'm being an evil manipulator or tyrant. Gender is complex and non-binary. All right. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, excellent. Oh, guess what, guys? We've got a video. The gender unicorn is back. Oh, God. Hang on. Hang on. We got to watch it. Shit just got real, y'all. Get ready to learn about the gender unicorn.
Welcome back to another presentation by the Sexperts. Today, we are going to be discussing gender identity and sexual orientation through the gender unicorn. This graphic was designed by Landon Pan for the TSER, which stands for the Trans Student Educational Resources. The gender unicorn helps break down the differences between gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, and the physical and emotional attraction you have to others. By the end of this video, you will be able to identify how your gender is self-determined internally.
Hang on.
The way you express your gender with your...
Can we just... Okay, so this is a channel called... Okay. The Cambridge, Massachusetts schools are using in their fucking teacher training a video from a channel called The Sexperts, which looked to me like it was a bunch of teenagers that only has 41 subscribers on YouTube. So they are very literally using teenagers or very young people to train their teachers, just like they're just picking off random YouTube videos. That's crazy. I have never done a single workplace training in which I defaulted to picking a random video off of YouTube on a channel that only had 41 subscribers. I've never picked a random video off YouTube of anything. When I was hired to do corporate training, I did the fucking corporate training myself. I didn't default to YouTube videos.
Appearance, how your biological sex is determined, and who you may be physically and emotionally attracted to. Ultimately, you will experience an increase in self-acceptance, self-esteem, and the acceptance of others.
That's correct, Anne-Marie.
Remember that gender exists on a spectrum, and these spectrums provided for each category will help you determine how you feel about yourself and others. As you may have noticed, this image was already marked as an example of where a person may lie on each of the spectrums, and how they combine to make you the unique individual that you are. This quote was very important to keep in mind. The real goal is to create a culture in which coming out isn't even a thing. Sexuality is an important part of us, but it does not define us. Think more in terms of self-determining rather than self-defining, as defining ourselves as one complete idea holds us back from evolving and living out our fullest potentials as sexual beings. Let's begin by exploring gender identity a bit further. Gender identity is defined as one's internal sense of one's own gender or the gender with which a person identifies. Remember that everyone has a gender identity, whether it's male, female, another gender. Some people are also agender and either gender or they do not relate to any gender. Gender is more than binary, and it can be defined by your emotional thoughts. So if an individual feels that they are not exclusively
gender can be defined by your emotional thoughts. Okay, sure.
Masculine or feminine, they may identify as non-binary or genderqueer. Your gender identity is self-determined, meaning it cannot be observed from the outside and no one else can determine it for you. As gender identity remains internal, gender expression is the external or physical manifestations of gender. Gender and who you are goes beyond your physical body. However, you can use your appearance to help express your gender by how you walk, talk, your name, pronouns, clothing, hairstyle, behavior, body characteristics, etc.
Again, they're doing this thing where they equate changing your gender to putting on a different outfit. And I would think that teachers should be able to identify that changing your gender is not the same thing as changing an outfit. But they do this all the time. They do this in sex ed videos. I was unaware that they did this in teacher training, but okay, now we know.
Remember from our last video, we mentioned that sexual binaries are social constructs. Therefore, gender exists outside just men and women, meaning everyone has their own idea of what it means to be or appear masculine or feminine. You get to choose how you present yourself to the world with your own imagination and creativity. This may benefit a trans individual who will often use their gender expression to help them feel more aligned with who they are. However, they may dress more masculine or feminine, or even try to hide certain qualities in order to avoid potential danger, such as sexual assault or sexual harassment. The only category that doesn't have a spectrum yet is sex assigned at birth, or your biological sex. This is the assignment and classification of people as either male, female, intersex, or another sex, and is typically assigned by a doctor or nurse, based on your anatomy, your hormones, and chromosomes. As intersex may not be easily identifiable, many people may have been assigned and labeled the wrong sex at birth. Just because you were assigned a specific gender does not mean that's who you feel you are at your core or how you feel comfortable existing as. A trans individual may struggle with this as their assigned gender and sense of gender identity are not the same. This is where gender expression can become useful to them. When discussing physical attraction, this refers to someone's sexual orientation, which is how a person identifies in relation to the gender or the genders to which they are attracted to. So being a heterosexual, homosexual, etc. Being physically or sexually attracted to someone may be your body's response to others' bodies. Someone who identifies as
your
a gay
body's
man
response
likes
to others'
men.
bodies.
However, this may be a little or a lot more or even less than other genders. Sometimes someone's physical attraction to another is based on solely that person as a whole and not just their specific gender that they are or identify as. The same is true when we explore who we're romantically and emotionally attracted to. This is who we fall in love with. In terms of sexual orientation, emotional attraction is being attracted to someone's mind or spirit. Your emotional attraction may not match the gender of who you are physically attracted to. Both physical and emotional attraction may depend on another person's assigned gender, gender expression, and/or their gender identity. So after learning all the different aspects of gender, where do you fall on each line? Remember that a person's position on any of these scales can shift or change over time. And it's okay if you don't know where you sit at all. Think about how your gender expression may even change with your environment. If you're with the same sex, if you're alone, if you're at work, out with friends. So make sure you observe your environment and see how you feel in each situation. And finally, note that each of these aspects can change independently. Just because your gender expression changes doesn't mean your gender identity will change or be any different. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check us out on social media. Thanks for watching today, and look out for our next episode in our LGBTQ+ series.
All right, well, that was a good video to watch at a teacher training in a high school. That was for middle and high school teachers, guys, just so you know. All right, let's go back. Gender is a social construct and a tool of white supremacy. Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Oh my gosh. Let me just tweet this real quick. I can actually say that I'm tweeting again and not like pretending that I have intrepid volunteers running my account. So that's kind of nice. From the presentations, we're unboxing. Hang on. All right, we got that tweeted. Thank you for humoring me there, guys. Let's keep going. Word sentence protocol. The gender binary is a tool of white supremacy. Okay, initially review the text. Wow. So again, in a teacher training course, they are linking to someone, it looks like on Medium, who's writing a publication called An Injustice Magazine. The gender binary is a tool of white supremacy. We're not going to read this article. I think we can all imagine what this article says. Word that captured your attention. I'll read the article later and do a full report, but I'm just not reading it right now. Historical context. How did colonization reinforce the gender binary? Explore map, alone or in pairs. What are your observations? What does this mean for our work? Did they define colonization? Do they have colonization defined in here? Colonization. Oh, there it is. It is important to consider the changes that colonization brought to understand the scope of the organization of sex and gender under colonialism and in Euro-centered global capitalism. Why are they even talking about capitalism when we're talking about gender? It's like the real enemy of critical race theory is really capitalism and not white people. If the latter did only recognize sexual dimorphism from white bourgeoisie males and females, it certainly does not follow that the sexual division is based in biology. The cosmetic and substantive corrections to biology make very clear that gender is antecedent to the biological traits and gives them meaning. The naturalization of sexual differences is another product of the modern use of science that points out in the case of race. Okay. They also go against the white Christianity that colonization rests its worldview on. Oh. Oh. That's interesting. So they believe that colonization is about making everything white and Christian. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. That's the end of that one. I guess, Anne-Marie, I don't really agree with you on this because the First Amendment does not establish a state religion. And so I don't really care what people believe because people shouldn't be bringing their religion into public schools. That's kind of my point of view on that one. I know you guys are having a chat in the chat. I haven't followed all of it, but that's my point of view on that. All right. Oh, they brought students in with this one. That's good. Collective wisdom. How do you integrate LGBTQ plus affirming practices in all of your choices? So what this means is that if a hey, Anne-Marie, just so you know, I know this is not the topic I'm talking about right now, but the Human Rights Commission is refusing to investigate the Exeter Region Cooperative School District. They're flat out refusing to investigate it, even though they have on their website that they're breaking the fucking law, because I'm not a student in the school district. So I don't know exactly what to do about that, but if you have ideas, let me know. That is what I would really like. I would like the fucking state of New Hampshire to do its fucking job. I know I'm not clapping at anyone here. I'm just aggravated that a school in New Hampshire literally has on their website that they are breaking the law, and Chris Sununu's Human Rights Commission refuses to effing investigate them. Anyway. Student wisdom. What does a truly gender-inclusive classroom look like, sound like, feel like? It feels like asking for pronouns being normalized, books, art, etc. with more gender-inclusive characters, writing language normalizing gender nonconformity. Everyone uses and respects people's pronouns, or at least tries to. Curriculum tells stories and backgrounds of everyone in the classroom. There is a group acknowledgement of everyone's presence and what it represents, respecting pronouns, not segregating, not using dead names. It's a room that teacher does not misgender you on a regular basis. In a room, what? Okay, here's my question. Why are there so many fucking trans students in Cambridge, Massachusetts? What % of the population is actually trans? Why are there so many trans students in Cambridge, Massachusetts? I think that's fair. Asking for pronouns, respecting pronouns, gender, not saying things like ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. Okay, so the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools are teaching their teachers to eliminate all gendered language. That's good. Student wisdom. In what ways can educators signal a gender-inclusive environment in a classroom? Is this just the same thing? No, I guess slightly different. So really the emphasis seems to be on pronouns. Jacob, I'm going to be looking into Somerville. Are you in Somerville? Somerville's on the list. Pronouns. Have you experienced a gender-inclusive curriculum? If they're giving surveys about pronouns. Okay. What roles do you want educators to play when misogynistic, transphobic, and homophobic comments and acts are made? What do you wish to happen? One, for the folks to be called out on it. So, okay, students are telling the teachers to call them out. Oh, you're in Arlington? Okay. Maybe I'll look into, Jacob, do you think Arlington is worth looking into? Let me know. I'm definitely looking into Somerville. Somerville is going to be woke. For people to apologize for that, it's so simple. Many refuse to do it. Stand up for the victim. Make it clear that those actions are not acceptable. Provide support for students and stand up with them to take action. In one of my classes, a kid said the F slur and no one did anything. He was a cis het. Okay, why does a student know the term cis het? He was a cis het man, and the teacher definitely heard if these types of things can be avoided in the classroom, it could be better. I think there should be more consequences than there are now, and they should not say things like, hey, don't say this kind of thing, and here's why, and not acting as if there are not LGBTQ plus kids there, because we are there and we can hear them talking about us as some foreign group that you'll never meet for real. I just want to point out that it really looks like they just copy and pasted the comments of these students, and these students don't know how to write. Shut it down. I would like them to provide lesson plans on the subject to help raise awareness on the subject. Talk to them and pull them out of class for the victim to feel more comfortable. So basically, when someone says something that these kids don't like, these kids basically want the teachers to start to engage in a struggle session, and they want them to remove people from classes, and they really want the offender to be punished. And I guess I can understand that they're kids, but they shouldn't be setting the parameters for how this stuff is done. Pronouns. Pronouns. She, her, hers, and he, him, his are commonly used pronouns. Some people call these female, feminine, and male, masculine pronouns, but many avoid these labels because not everyone who uses he likes a male or masculine. Why would you use he pronouns if you didn't feel male? There are also a lot of gender-neutral pronouns in use. Here are a few you might hear. They, them, theirs. She ate their food because they were hungry. This is a pretty common gender-neutral pronoun, and it can be used in the singular. In fact, they was voted as the word of the year in 2015. Oh, isn't that wacky? Z, her, her. Wait, is that Z, her, zer, her? Zer, Z, zer, zer? Or Z, her, her? I don't know how to pronounce that. Tyler ate zer food because Z was hungry. Okay, her is pronounced like here. Here. So Z, here, here. That's what they are. Tyler ate here food because Z was hungry. Z is pronounced like Z and can also be spelled Z-I-E or X-E and replaces she, he, they. Here is pronounced like here and replaces her, hers, his, blah, 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 blah. Just say my name. Okay, that's probably the least complicated. This is why, by the way, students can't write. Never refer to a person as it or he, she. I've actually seen on the trans discords that I have maybe infiltrated under fake identities. Maybe I'm not saying I did that, but maybe I did. In the trans discords I'm in, I've seen people refer to themselves as it. So what if the student asks you to refer to them as it? There's all sorts of, by the way, there's all sorts of wacky shit on those discords. Those discords are un-effing hinged. Pronouns chart 101. Oh, this is great. Pronouns. Normalize sharing of pronouns as introductions. Take notes. Understand that sharing pronouns can be hard if you aren't sure or aren't out or don't want to draw attention. Understanding that pronouns can change. Okay, so if a student comes in and has new pronouns every single day, what is the teacher supposed to do? Allow students to change their name and pronouns in Zoom. If you notice that another teacher is using the wrong pronouns, do the work of correcting them. Blank space for pronouns in form other than radio buttons. Stop using he, she. It doesn't cover everyone. Practice for comfort with they, them, and neo-pronouns. Neo-pronouns are insanity. If you haven't encountered neo-pronouns yet, just Google neo-pronouns. You will. I'm not going to do it in this stream, but you do it. Just trust me. It's a rabbit hole. Students feel safe when a teacher shows they've thought about identities outside of their own. Use non-binary language. Include non-binary identities in the curriculum. This training is insane. Don't assume LGBTQIA+ kids will look or be a certain way. White, upper middle class, not religious. One agender identified 7th grader. An agender identified 7th grader. That's 12 years old. 12. That 7th grader has probably not gone through puberty yet. And they are agender identified. One agender identified 7th grader, Jace, remembers feeling safe after a teacher commented on their agender character drawing, saying they looked cool. Trust that transgendered youth know who they are and what they need. And that's from Teaching Tolerance. Teaching Tolerance is also insane for several other reasons. They've got some guests. Okay. That's it for that one. Let's see about their last one. Connections, planting the seeds of protocol, intersectionality wars, and a video. Explore intersectionality and what it means, why does it matter, and how it plays out in our schools. Guys, if you are enjoying this stream I'm doing, unboxing my FOIA documents from the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools, please mount that like button for me. I do regular investigations of school districts all over the country. I've investigated Burlington, Vermont. I've investigated Portland, Oregon. I've investigated Seattle, Washington. I've investigated Chicago. I did Rochester, New York, which was surprisingly okay. Rochester, New York, you're good. I signed off. They're doing a good job. Cambridge, Massachusetts, fucking crazy though. And I'm continuing just investigating schools all over the country because I am building a program to train 10,000 parents how to use public information to learn what your kids are being taught by the schools just by going on their websites and FOIAing their documents and figuring it out. I will be launching this training program officially in January, but you can help me fund it now by heading over to unwokearmy.com/parents. And there's still lots of perks available. And I'm really pulling for that marketing budget so you guys can help me meet that goal by funding it today. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. It's in the description below, and I really, really appreciate it. All right, back to this. I'm going to be honest. I don't really care about climate change. It's just not my main issue. Don't care. I'm not saying that we can't do better. I'm not saying that we can't do some green things. Okay, fine. But the Green New Deal is not about climate change. The Green New Deal is about globalization and social justice. Has nothing to do with solving climate change at all in any way. Your leaders don't care about climate change, even if they claim to. But if you care about it, I encourage you to do whatever you want to do to fix climate change. But it's not something we talk about on this channel. All right. Intersectionality wars? What is this? They assault. Holy shit. They gave them a Vox article with Kimberle Crenshaw at the very top. The intersectionality wars. When Kimberle Crenshaw coined a term 30 years ago, it was a relatively obscure legal concept. Then it went viral. Does anyone know? Does anyone know what Kimberle Crenshaw coined? Technically? I mean, she did coin intersectionality, but she's also been, Kimberle Crenshaw has been one of the key proponents of critical race theory. But I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K-12 schools. This is from 2019. This is literally included in a teacher training. We're not going to read that article right now, but just know this teacher training course included an article from Vox about Kimberle Crenshaw and intersectionality. Oh, there's Ben Shapiro. Oh, good. Oh, God. Planting the seeds protocol. Find a partner and switch papers. Make sure names are on each paper. Read the other person's quotations. All right, fine. Is this a link? Oh, good. A Kimberle Crenshaw talk. All right, it's only 1 minute long. Let's watch it. No, they do teach CRT. This is incorrect. Stop spreading this lie. I blame James Lindsay for this lie. He did not teach this well. They absolutely are teaching CRT. They are absolutely teaching it. It is a lie to say that they're not. They absolutely are. Anyone who has come to my happy hours on Fridays knows that they're teaching it. We've seen it many times. All right, this is a 1 minute video. Kimberle Crenshaw, intersectionality is not identity.
Particularly those who haven't followed demarginalizing from its initial iteration, often mistakenly think that intersectionality is only about multiple identities. I've got 3, you've got 6, the identity question goes on and on. Some colleagues in Germany undertook to count how many intersections there are. Last count, there were like 17 or something. There was an attempt to map them all. That's not, at least my articulation of intersectionality. Intersectionality is not primarily about identity. It's about how structures make certain identities the consequence of and the vehicle for vulnerability. So if you want to know how many intersections matter, you've got to look at the context. What's happening? What kind of discrimination is going on? What are the policies? What are the institutional structures that play a role in contributing to the exclusion of some people and not others? So there are multiple.
All right, hang on, guys. Just give me 1 sec, please. All right, there was nothing really groundbreaking in that video. I'm just trying to look for something else real quick. All right, there we go. No, we're not going to listen anymore. We're not going to listen anymore by accident. All right. How does Crenshaw distinguish her definition of intersectionality from what's commonly known? What are the structures in schools that make certain identities and intersections of identities more vulnerable? And they've got some feedback. All right. So, okay. Wasn't a lot of crazy stuff in that last one. Now, I think the second section was definitely the most crazy of all of the intersectionality ones, and I think there's definitely stuff we can work with there. Let me just look at some of these other workshops real quick. Oh, that's not the one I want. Wait. Oh! This makes so... Do you know what I did? This makes so much more sense now. Okay, so this was session 2 for becoming an anti-racist educator. This was section 3 for becoming an anti-racist educator. These are all additionally anti-racist educator sessions. Okay, I just didn't realize they were the same thing because they weren't labeled correctly. Okay. So we've got more anti-racism to go through, which makes a lot more sense because, to be honest, I might go through these pretty quickly, guys. There wasn't a whole lot of anti-racism in the first 2. So now I'm feeling a little bit like... that feels a little bit more, that feels more correct to me. Providing a students with an accommodation is a civil right. Yes, it is. Hang on, I'm just looking through it. Why are they talking? Okay. Anti-racism and universal design learning. An effective framework to teach Black and Brown students, drawing vivid portraits of her classroom instruction in urban over the last 2 decades. It's missing a word. Fitzgerald shows teachers how to open new roads for communication, engagement, skill building for their students. The result, helping students be... Why are we only using certain teaching methods for Black and Brown students? That seems a little bit racist for me. But okay. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, in this session, they had a student presenting that goes by Michael or Mara, that's in the 12th grade, and I guess they uses he or she pronouns depending on how they feel on any given day. Okay. Does anyone else find it a little bit bizarre that teachers are getting training from a high school senior who sometimes presents as a boy and sometimes presents as a girl and changes their name and or pronouns based on how they're feeling on any given day? And that is the person teaching the teachers? The school thought that was a good idea? Okay. Flowers Against Effery says, I go by that bitch on most given days. Me too, Flowers. Me too. It's good to see you. Intersectionality, another one with Kimberle Crenshaw. All right, let's watch it. They had to watch it. We have to watch it. It's the way it goes. It is actually rather amazing to me, though, just how much of these trainings rely on YouTube videos. And just to give you some sense of this, so these trainings are probably costing the school district tens of thousands of dollars. When I did corporate training, my half-day rate, and I tell you this just so you can have comparison, so you know how much these things cost. My half-day rate was $8,500. My full-day rate started at $12,500, and I was at like a mid-level pricing when I was doing corporate training full time. But that's how much this stuff costs. Some are like very few are going to be less than that. There will be many who are more than that, but there aren't really like, I guess maybe you could find some cheapo trainings, but anyway, that's how much money we're talking about. It would have never crossed my mind to do my training by pulling random videos off of YouTube. Robin DiAngelo gets paid, it depends on the thing, but I've seen her charge tens of thousands of dollars for a recorded 1-hour speech. For a recording, not even going in person, for a recording. Okay? Robin DiAngelo to keynote an event probably starts at a minimum of $25,000. Minimum.
Many years ago, I began to use the term intersectionality to deal with the fact that many of our social justice problems like racism and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice. Now, the experience that gave rise to intersectionality was my chance encounter with a woman named Emma de Graffenried. I actually read about Emma's story from the pages of a legal opinion written by a judge who had dismissed Emma's claim of race and gender discrimination against a local car manufacturing plant. She applied for a job and she was not hired, and she believed that she was not hired because she was a Black woman. And the argument for dismissing the suit was that the employer did hire African Americans and the employer hired women. The real problem, though, that the judge was not willing to acknowledge was what Emma was actually trying to say. That the African Americans that were hired, usually for industrial jobs, maintenance jobs, were all men. And the women that were hired, usually for secretarial or front office work, were all white. Only if the court was able to see how these policies came together would he be able to see the double discrimination that Emma de Graffenried was facing. But the court refused to allow Emma to put two causes of action together to tell her story because he believed that by allowing her to do that, she would be able to have preferential treatment. She'd have an advantage by being able to have two swings at the bat when African American men and white women only had one swing at the bat. But of course, neither African American men or white women needed to combine a race and gender discrimination claim to tell the story of the discrimination they were experiencing. Why wasn't the real unfairness law's refusal to protect African American women simply because their experiences weren't exactly the same as white women and African American men? Rather than broadening the frame to include African American women, the court simply tossed their case completely out of court. So first of all,
Wait. Is Kimberle Crenshaw really telling us that she made up the term intersectionality because she knew someone who lost in court? And she was trying to create a reason to explain why that person lost in court? Is that really what I'm hearing right now? Kimberle Crenshaw invented intersectionality as a way to rationalize why someone lost in court. God.
Work at the plant. Second of all, the court doubled down on this exclusion by making it legally inconsequential. And to boot, there was no name for this problem. And we all know that where there's no name for a problem, you can't see a problem. And when you can't see a problem, you pretty much can't solve it. Many years later, I'd come to recognize that the problem that Emma was facing was a framing problem. The frame that the court was using to see gender discrimination or to see race discrimination was partial and it was distorting. For me, the challenge that I faced was trying to figure out whether there was an alternative narrative, a prism that would allow us to see Emma's dilemma, a prism that would allow us to rescue her from the cracks in the law, that would allow judges to see her story. So it occurred to me, maybe a simple analogy to an intersection might allow judges to better see Emma's dilemma. So if we think about this intersection, the roads to the intersection would be the way that the workforce was structured by race and by gender. And then the traffic in those roads would be the hiring policies and the other practices that
Why is there loud music over this?
Now, because Emma was both Black and female, she was positioned precisely where those roads overlapped, experiencing the simultaneous impact of the company's gender and race traffic. The law was like that ambulance that shows up and is ready to treat Emma only if it can be shown that she was harmed on the race road or on the gender road, but not where those roads intersect.
If she was harmed on either the race road or the gender road, then inherently she would be on the fucking road that intersects with the other road. This doesn't even work as an analogy. If you this is like, okay, did you guys know that, like, a lot of people don't understand this? So Victor and I went to the Big E over the weekend, and in order to get to the Big E, we had to drive down Interstate 90, which connected with Interstate 290. Interstate 290 is called Interstate 290 because it connects with Interstate 90 twice. There's also Interstate 390, which is called Interstate 390 because it intersects Interstate 390 intersects with Interstate 90 3 times. That's why we have some roads that are called like 290, 390, because they intersect with the main interstate, which in this case is 90, multiple times. And that's how you know how many times they intersect. I say this because if Emma is on the race road, it's still going to fucking intersect with the fucking gender road. That's part of the analogy. So this, for Kimberle Crenshaw to say, Emma's legal case failed because they didn't consider that she had both. That's like saying that like it is not possible for her to be either on the race road by itself or on the gender. Like, those things are going to, like, my God. It doesn't even fucking work as an analogy. Look at a map. I bet you it does. Look at a map. I bet you it actually does intersect with it. That's not correct, dude. It's about how many times it crosses over the fucking road. Look at a map. You're going to see that it hit road 84 6 times. I guarantee you. Anyway, Kimberle Crenshaw is insane. I had no idea that was the origin of intersectionality, and now it makes so much more sense. All right. Hidden identity. Any personal invisible descriptors of a person's identity that are not apparent, accurate or not, from outward appearance. Exactly. 293 hits 93 twice. That is exactly right. Nope. Bet you it hits it 3 times. Look at the whole road, Jacob. Bet you it hits it 3 times. Horizontal identity, an identity. And guys, I'm not going to argue this road thing. If you're arguing this road thing, you're not actually paying attention to the thing that matters, and you're not listening. And so we're not going to argue the road thing anymore. And if you keep arguing the road thing, you're going to get a timeout because I need you to be listening to this. Do you understand? The road thing was an analogy to talk about why intersectionality is bullshit. We are not being autistic right now and arguing the fucking road thing, which if you actually look at a fucking map, you're going to realize I'm right. We're not going to argue it right now because this is what we're paying attention to. Horizontal identity, an identity that is not shared with parents and caregivers. Digging deeper, Cat's story. His name is Cat. This has way more videos than I anticipated. All right, let's watch Cat's story. Teens talking to parents and caregivers about their gender. What could possibly go wrong?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural video, Kickstarter, send-off thing, whatever you want to call it, for Gender Spectrum's new video series about trans teens talking to their parents. My name is Kat. I'm an 18-year-old trans guy from Louisville, Kentucky, currently studying in Chicago, Illinois. But before I get into the video and what I actually want to talk about, I figure you should know a couple things about me, perhaps. So this isn't awkward or anything. So a couple quick facts about me. I'm adopted.
Thanks, Jacob.
I'm studying in Chicago for film. I'm a year and 8 months on testosterone, 1 year, 7 months post-op, and it has been 2 years and 9 months since I came out to my mom, which is what I wanted to talk to you.
Wait. He's 18 years old. He had surgery at 17, which was a year after he came out to his mom at 16. So you're telling me that in 1 year after coming out to his mom, he had already had surgery, which to me is a little fast when we're talking about someone that came out at 16 years old. How are you supposed to go through the required therapy in order to make permanent decisions about chopping off parts of your body when you're underage in a year after you came out to your parents when you're a teenager? Seems a little fast is all I'm saying.
About today. That's what we're here for. We're talking about coming out. I'm here to talk to you about how I came out and how maybe this can help you come out.
Well done,
or
Cider.
Parents, maybe this can help you prepare for if your child comes out. Being that half of this is going to be talking to the kids, half of this is going to be talking to the parents, little bit in between. We'll see how it goes. Teens, when you are looking to come out, there are 3 things you need to think of. There's a lot of things you need to think about. 3 categories. You get the gist. The first is your situation. The second is yourself. And the third is your method of coming out, how you're going to do it. In regards to your situation, you need to make sure that you have a backup plan. And as you're figuring this stuff out about yourself, you kind of want to get a gist of what side your parents might stand. I came out probably like 2 weeks after a lot of heavy research because I knew my mom was going to be supportive and I was ready to do it. But
he came out after 2 weeks of heavy research, and his mother immediately put him on puberty blockers and signed him up for surgery.
Backup plan is so important. Even if you know they're going to be supportive, you need to have one in case. Have a place you can go if for some reason you are not able to return to your home after you come out. Have people that will support you and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very important that you remain safe. And that leads on to the next thing, yourself. Make sure you're ready to come out. You know, no one's forcing you to come out before it's your time to do it. Make sure you are ready, you feel safe, and make sure it's something that you want to do and you're not being pressured to do it. And the last thing is your method of coming out. This is where it's going to get a little bit personal, not for you, but for me, because I have a copy of my coming out letter right here. I've gone through and picked out some bits and pieces of it that I'm going to be sharing with you. So back to your method of coming out. If you didn't catch on, I came out through a letter. And the way I came out and the words that I use is a combination of 3 trans YouTubers that I found. Those people were Skylar Kurgel, Benton Sorensen, and Alex Birdie. So please be aware that as I read fragments of this letter, that transitioning and educating and learning is very much a growing process. There are a lot of arguably misogynistic, sexist things in this letter, and it's very heteronormative. It was my mindset as a 15-year-old when I was ready to come out and just trying to find a way to tell my mom. And
I apologize. He came out. I was wrong. I thought he came out at 16. He really came out at 15 after 2 weeks of heavy research. Okay.
And one last thing, the reason why I chose to come out in a letter rather than telling her in person or calling her on the phone or anything is I have an issue with confrontation when it comes to situations like this. This was a choice regarding my situation because I wanted to feel safe. I wanted it to be sort of clear because I knew I was going to.
He did it this way because they don't teach children how to have conversations anymore. In fact, this isn't even a new thing. I've started to come to the conclusion that like a very small percent of the population under the age of 30 knows how to actually have a conversation like an adult. At some point they stopped teaching this. I don't know exactly when, but it's not because he's well, I mean, I'm sure he is uncomfortable with confrontation, but the reason he came out in a letter is that he doesn't know how to talk to his mother.
A mumble, and I was going to get off track if I told her in person. All right, let's do this thing.
If you can't use your words to say, I think I was born in the wrong body and we should do something about that, you have no business in this universe cutting off your body parts. It's like the same thing with sex, right? If you are uncomfortable having a conversation about sex with the person that you're having sex with, you probably shouldn't be having sex with them in the first place. If you are uncomfortable speaking about the things that you are doing to each other, you maybe should just take a step back. And it's the same thing with this. If you are uncomfortable using your words to speak who you are, perhaps don't cut off the body parts just yet.
The first fragment and the way I opened up is, I understand if you might be upset about things that I say in this letter, but all I'm asking for you is to have an open mind. I don't necessarily, I think in my mind when I was writing it, I was trying to prepare her for what was coming. And I just wanted it to be, you know, please just read the letter without judgment and then we can talk about it later and share our feelings. And that was sort of a buffer or just, I guess, a hint that something important was going to be in this letter and that she needed, that it was imperative for her to have an open mind. Next part, and this is where it gets to me trying to horribly explain these feelings I've had. I've begun to have an attraction to females instead of males. I don't picture a female to male relationship. I picture a male to female relationship with me as fulfilling the guy or boyfriend role. And that part in particular came from one of
So she was a butch lesbian,
where his psychiatrist told him to, you know, draw a picture of himself at what would be his wedding and who he saw himself as. On to more. When I look back, I always see myself as this wannabe warrior person and a girl who is in touch with her masculine side more than other girls. I've been getting these impulses to get in fights. Don't remember that. Even though I'm probably not able to strength-wise. I've thought about the Army and the National Guard and about how I want to fight and protect. This is very much about my masculine side. I have thought about those things, and I don't know, it's at that age I was still very much in a binary, and it's not necessarily, you know, bad, but it's also not necessarily good. Now that part of the letter doesn't make sense to me why that was necessary, but I guess I was just trying to explain this trait of a more masculine side and these more masculine thoughts for a more masculine job role as a reason why.
I want to point out, because Mandy is making a really good point, and Mandy is trans, and so I'm going to trust Mandy's opinion on this. They are committing to a lifetime of medication. Children don't have the discernment to make that decision. No one tells them this. No one tells them that they are committing to a lifetime of medication. What they tell them is that this is the same as changing your outfit. There are so many videos that just present this. And Mandy, if you've seen something different, please let me know. But like, there are so many videos that present this as just like, you express your gender through your outfits. Isn't our outfit great? If you don't like the outfit you're wearing, you can put on a new outfit. They don't tell them that it is a lifetime of medication. They get to find that out later after they've cut off the body parts.
I was believing that I'm trans. And this final part, before I read it, the way I wanted to end this letter is I wanted to include her in what I was about to do. At this point, when I was writing this letter, I absolutely knew I was trans. There was no going back. I knew that I wanted to go on testosterone. I knew what I wanted to do, but they may be more supportive if you're letting them into this part of their lives and you're not just doing it alone. So here we go. I feel like I've entered this major journey to find myself. And I really want you to be a part of it because I realize now that I felt so lost with the coming and going of these thoughts and ideas. And I really want someone by my side when I walk the trail. And I think that the first step to finding myself is to seek gender therapy. That was the big thing. I need to go to a gender therapist. This gives her maybe some comfort that, you know, it might just be an identity crisis that I'm going through, and there's a professional who can help me figure this out. I'm not sure what you'll think about this as a first step, but it's been a first step for a lot of people, and they said that it made them feel better and really helped. All I'm asking for you is to have an open mind about who I am now and who I may be. And that's the ending of the letter. So there are a lot of things I would change about that letter, and there are a lot of different ways I would come out. I hope this video helped in some way, but if you have any questions, and this is for both parties, feel free to contact me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series. Bye.
I wonder what happened to this person now. When was this video? This is on a YouTube channel called Gender Spectrum. It was in 2016. I do wonder what happened now. Yeah, Mandy says, you are correct. They paint a rosy picture without any of the possible problems. They're lying to them. It's so sad.
For those of you who haven't taken seats yet.
Hang on. I need to...
Hello, everybody, and welcome.
I want to go back to that YouTube channel later and see if I can find like an update or something. But like, I'm sorry. I could be wrong. I hope that person is very happy with the choices they've made. But to me, that person sounded like they were a more masculine lesbian who didn't need to cut off their body parts. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounded like to me. And I think that that's really sad. And I think that any teachers, I think that any adults who just watched the video that we just watched should, to be really honest, have a what the fuck moment when this person is talking about coming out in a letter at 15 within a year, having surgery before they're 18. I think anyone should be like, maybe that was a little bit too fast. Maybe it was rushed. Yeah, as Flowers says, a masculine lesbian that wanted to appear to have a heterosexual relationship. Yes. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? I hope they're happy. I genuinely do. I don't wish them any harm. I just think that they should have, they should have been guided better by the adults in their lives. Cambridge Teen Health Survey data in 2021, 82%. Oh, okay. I just read that as 83% of students are identifying as genderqueer, and I was like, what the fuck? But that's not what it says. 83% of students who identify as genderqueer report being anxious. 60% of middle school genderqueer students reported being depressed. 32% of middle school genderqueer students reported self-harming. Why do middle school students think they're genderqueer? 44% of middle school genderqueer students reported considering bad things. Of the students, 41% have made a plan for how to do bad things. That's really sad. But I want that survey. I want to know what percentage of students think they're genderqueer in middle school. Actually, let me just Google that real quick. Hang on. Let me just Google it real quick, see if I can find it. Cambridge Teen Health Survey data 2021. Found it. Found it. Might have even found this year's. Hang on. Boop. All right, let's see. I want the data. Teen health surveys. Report. I just want to know how many of them say they're genderqueer. 2021, among high school students, 20% reported that they had sexual intercourse compared to 28% in 2018. Okay. I want to know how many are genderqueer. Oh shit. Sexual orientation. In 2021, all survey respondents, 65% reported being straight or heterosexual. 14% is bisexual, 5% reported lesbian, gay, or homosexual, 4% had some other sexual orientation, and 12% didn't know. That seems high to me, I'm just saying. That seems a little high to me. All right, I'm going to look through those another time. What do you think of supporting trans and gender expressive students? What are the worries that come to mind? What are the barriers? Yeah, well, I'm wondering like asexual or pansexual or something like that. And that was a lot. That was like 4%. I mean, towards liberation. Oh. 3 minutes. Okay. As a reminder, anytime we hear the word liberation or abolition, we're thinking communism.
So since 2013, TSCR has been leading the campaign for Transgender Day of Visibility. And what this means to us is more than just representation.
Oh, thanks, bot.
Or very superficial visibility measures that just put a trans person on the screen.
These are all spaces that are consumed and produced by cis people.
And it's just hard to envision a future for yourself when there's such little representation of people that are like you, I guess.
It may have started out as a really beautiful resistance tactic, because at the end of the day, our existence is very beautiful because we're not supposed to be here. But at the end of the day, allowing that to then be consumed by cis people, so when it takes the power out of it.
To statistics have shown that that with more visibility in media and legislation, actually comes more violence towards not just trans people, but all marginalized communities.
Yeah, the backlash happens when there's surface level change without structural and systemic change.
It's more about trans people being able to create our own media and create our own representations that aren't exploitative and actually show narratives that
This is their bad sound, it's not mine.
and fit what cis people expect us to be.
Living as authentically as I can in my gender. And that doesn't mean just like taking the hormones or like doing the surgery and like looking as feminine as possible. It also means getting the world to accept us. Getting the world to accept me as a woman, getting the world to accept trans people, that, you know, what gender do they identify as, this is who they are. Like, people are who they say they are, and people don't get to decide like what your body is and isn't.
My own transness is like rejection of like the way the gender binary has policed me.
A lot of it has to do with self-care and kind of building those coping skills.
Then you have to come up with different ways in order to navigate and survive.
In order to prevent the backlash, you need to go deeper than we are going to.
Trying to do whatever activism I can so I can improve the trans community in my city.
Simply placing a marginalized community within a system of oppression isn't going to solve the system of oppression. We need to change the entire system.
Their sound, not mine.
How do we, reimagine a better world while also living in the one we're living in right now?
Understanding people's personal experiences, like looking at activism from like a very people-centered standpoint, like really recognizing experiences they've gone through and what, like through that experience, what skill set they can bring to activism and how we can use that collectively to like change the systems that we're trying to fight against.
There needs to be a space for those people in order to like, one, to like heal, but also to like be able to speak on experiences that other people will also understand and sort of build a community in order to like move forward and like try to fight and advocate for ourselves while remembering to also take care of ourselves as well.
My heart honestly breaks for the students in videos like this when I see them, because what I really want people to understand is every single person that we just saw in this video is a victim. They are all victims of this ideology. Every one of them. They are spouting the talking points that they have been taught by adults. And I really think that the last thing that any of these kids, and they are all kids, the last thing that any of these kids need is to be made fun of or mocked or ridiculed. That is only going to make things worse. It is only going to dig them into this further, because part of the reason that they probably got taken advantage of, this shit is incredibly emotionally manipulative. They are using young people for a reason to manipulate all of us. They are using the emotions of young people to manipulate adults. And it's sad because it was the true believers that manipulated the young people in the first place. And so I really do have a problem when I see people like walkaway fame whore Mike Harlow trying to make himself famous on the internet by mocking people like this. And that's all he does. Apparently that's all Mike Harlow does anymore, is make videos mocking trans people. And I admit that some of those trans people are acting ridiculous that he's making videos of. However, it is not going to solve the problem. It is not going to change anything. It's only going to make things worse. It's only going to make things worse. It solves nothing. It accomplishes nothing. It might feel good for the moment, but these are people who have been manipulated by people that they trusted to make decisions about their lives that are going to be permanent, that are going to be long lasting. Oh yeah, Mike Harlow has been hurting his own movement for a long ass time now. Yes, he is. Has been for a long ass time. In many, many ways that I'm not going to get into right this second because it is not our topic today. But yes, he absolutely is. He absolutely is. But you know what? It's making him famous, so what does he really care? Because him being famous is all that he really wants anyway. All right, so they had them watch that video. They did some reflection. Oh, Glisten. Glisten. We got introduced to Glisten just the other day, learning for justice. Glisten is socialist. Uber socialist. Learning for justice, formally teaching tolerance is crazy too. Being there for non-binary youth, educator resources for the gender spectrum. We'll check out all these things later. I guess that's all they have for that one. Was that my last session? Hang on. Did I review this already? No. Oh, we got 2 more. This is talking about data. All right, that doesn't seem very anti-racist. And let's look at this one. These trainings are really not anti-racist. They're really not in any way. Equity is first and foremost pedagogical. The ability to dream and manifest a different way of teaching, learning, and being together persists and chafes against the status quo in classrooms everywhere. Street Data, a next-generation model for equity, pedagogy, and school transformation. I'm going to have to look that up because I don't know that one. High expectations messages. This is important. You can do this. I won't give up on you, even if you've given up on yourself. I don't think any of those are bad. Standards versus exceptions. I don't think that's bad. I really do want to sue the city of Cambridge to get oh, look at that. To get Dina Simmons trainings. I need to sue the city of Cambridge for that. Because Dina Simmons doesn't believe in capitalism. So why the fuck is she claiming intellectual property? I want to know what Dina Simmons is hiding, if I'm honest about it. All right. So overall, here is what I think of these trainings. And then we got the strategic initiatives one. This might be a little bit boring. This is mostly about goals, and we can look at this another time. I need to sit with this one by myself and dig through it. I can't do this live on the internet. There's too much here to think about. And I've been going for 2 hours already, and I got another stream today. So here is what I think about the trainings that we've looked at. I think that the intersectionality and gender one was especially crazy. That's one I really want to spend some time with and dig through and make sure I'm looking at all their resources. I think that the anti-racist one was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, mostly because it really didn't have a lot to do with anti-racism as it is traditionally taught. So that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. However, there were some really questionable resources in that training, and there were some really questionable links in that training that I do want to go and investigate. But overall, I didn't actually feel like a lot of the core content of that training was necessarily bad, mostly because it really wasn't all that anti-racist. That said, I don't know how it was presented. So oftentimes when you're doing corporate training, there might be a difference between what you see on the slides and how it is actually presented. And sadly, because the recording wasn't filmed that we know of, maybe it was. Maybe it was. Hang on. Did it say? Okay, it didn't say anything was being recorded. That might be worth a follow-up. It might be worth a follow-up to the city of Cambridge to say, were these sessions recorded and can I get access to the recording? That might be worth a follow-up. I also want Dina's training. Dina don't get to be an anti-capitalist on the internet and then claim fucking intellectual property. It was paid for by taxpayer dollars. It was trained to teachers in taxpayer-funded positions. That seems, and I thought that Andrew's suggestion about getting the contract was an excellent suggestion, and I'm definitely going to do that. But overall, I didn't really think the anti-race going to be taking a close look at their resources. I'm going to Unwoke Army Discord for people to look at it as well. If you want access to this information, if you are a parent in the city of Cambridge and you would like access to it, please email me at activelyunwoke@gmail.com, and I will be happy to forward this information to you because it's publicly available information. And I don't see why we should be hiding that shit. So, guys, I guess that's all I have for the stream today. I need to spend some time processing. We've gone through a lot today. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that sometimes, like, I didn't know what I was going to find, and so we had to work our way through quite a bit. But I do think we found some really good information about what they're doing. Now, as a reminder, this is not my last stream of the day. It is but my first stream of the day. So I'm going to go take a little break. I'm going to be back in a couple of hours. And we're going to do Nothing Remotely Controversial with Joshua, and I'll really be looking forward to that. If you've never been to Nothing Remotely Controversial before, it is a really fun show. It is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be lighthearted. Bring your questions about what's going on in the world, and we will have Joshua psychic up some answers. Last week was Royal Week. I wore a crown. I will not be wearing a crown this time. I already got my hat on. That's good enough for me. But we will be back at 9:30 tonight to do Nothing Remotely Controversial, so I will see you guys then. Please mount that like button on your way out the door. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We will be continuing tomorrow at 5 p.m., guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.